Good afternoon, hello, welcome to the TriathlonDan YouTube channel, welcome to testing day. You'll know James in the background. Morning, James.
Hello.
You okay?
Yeah.
In the background behind there we have Sam and Jem. Sam runs a company called Total Endurance Nutrition, and Sam is very kindly, along with Jem's help, helping us out today with some testing for James as well as nutrition advice for the Decker. So following this video, Sam's going to talk us through the testing, what the point of it is, what we're doing. Looking forward to taking along for the ride. I'm really excited about this, so let's get stuck in. Hi Sam.
Hello Dan.
You okay?
I'm good.
Sam runs a company, Total Endurance Nutrition, and I wondered if you tell us a little bit about yourself and your company, because you're very kindly supporting James in his Decker attempt in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, as Dan said, Total Endurance Nutrition, so co-owner with my colleague Juliet Strauss as well, and we've got a couple of people working with us now, but that's a bit of a side business at the moment, hoping to grow it. But this is where I work on a daily basis. So at Liverpool John Moores University, I'm a senior lecturer in sport and exercise nutrition. But we're using today to try and inform and support James in his quest to do and complete his Decker. So in terms of nutritional support, we'll be on the ground trying to tell him and making sure that he's maintaining good levels of energy. Energy balance is really the key thing that we're going to focus on. Because if his energy balance and it becomes very negative over the days, then there's going to be issues as we get further into the event. So we need to make sure that we're offsetting that. He's essentially making sure he eats enough food and the right sort of food during the event. The testing that we're going to do today is going to support that, essentially.
Yeah. And you guys see this process today, but this actually started a few months ago, didn't it? In that we had a couple of calls and you've given James some guidance on his nutrition throughout his training, because that's just as important as during the race. So thank you very much for the support during that. It's been harder to share that, but I just can't explain how grateful we are for the support from yourself and your colleagues to be able to do that. So looking forward to the event and hoping that it sets James up for a really good few days.
Yeah, this will be exciting. It's the first Decker that I've been involved in supporting an athlete, so I'm excited to see how he's going to do.
Good.
He's not going to let us down.
Yeah, sure. And Sam's also helping out, actually running a bit of a study into James, aren't you, during it? So as you said, managing his energy, but also we're tying together the technology with that as well, just trying to get as much information as we can from somebody doing a Decker, because there's not a whole amount out there, is there?
No, there's very little out there at the moment, and like you said, it is about managing energy through this event. But as you say, you've got your partnerships with Garmin, so we're going to get a lot of data. We can make sure that we collect data on energy intake, and we're going to get the expenditure data. So that's going to be really fundamental. I think this will make a really nice case study for people to refer back to. So that's the aim with this as well.
Brilliant.
So the scientist in me is coming through as well.
Yeah. Perfect. So what sort of services do you offer to, I'm going to say, a more normal athlete?
Yeah, the more normal athletes, other than the nutters that are doing Deckers. So basically we just provide nutrition coaching, we call it, or nutrition consultancy, because we provide like daily nutrition plans for people, doing anything from sprints all the way up to Ironmans typically, and now of course Deckers, for those of you who want to do that as well. But yeah, nutritional support around training, trying to get the most from your training. A lot of people say, how how do I fuel my training, not just the racing, but how do I fuel my training? And that's a really important part of the process to get the most from your training. You're investing a lot of time and energy, so make sure that you get the nutrition right to support that as well. And then of course race day nutrition, we spend a lot of time preparing people, a lot of gut training, things like that leading into events to make sure that their nutrition isn't going to let them down basically on race day.
Perfect. So how's the best way for people to get in touch with you if they are interested?
Yeah, so we're on Instagram, total_endurance_nutrition. We've also got the website, totalendurancenutrition.com. But yeah, either of those to reach out to us is perfect.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dan.
Cheers.
So the first part, we're interested in looking at your lactate thresholds. So a lot of people consider, your FTP might be your lactate threshold, or what we commonly think is a lactate threshold. But I suppose with the Norwegians and people like that talking more about lactate testing, we now appreciate there's like LT1 and LT2, so there's those that aerobic threshold and then your anaerobic threshold. So the first part is we're trying to determine those two things really. Alongside that, we'll just get an idea of your substrate utilisation, so your carbohydrate and fat oxidation at the different workloads, and plot that as well and just see what that looks like. And then we'll have a bit of a break when we've sort of finished that part. 10 or 15 minutes, and then we'll do the max test. And basically that's just to estimate your VO2 max. So that's the key part of that. For the first part of the test, we'll start off at a fairly low wattage, like 80 watts. I'm pleased you haven't looked at me and gone, whoa. That's good news.
I think you doesn't know what that means.
So yeah, 80 watts, and then every 4 minutes it's just going to increase by 30 watts.
Okay.
At the end of every 4 minutes, you'll just keep cycling, but Jen will come and take a finger prick lactate sample. And once your lactate goes beyond 4 millimoles, that's the sort of theoretical lactate threshold, or beyond that point it starts increasing exponentially.
Yeah.
So when it gets to 4, we'll stop the first part of the test, because we'll have got our LT1 and LT2 basically. 10 to 15 minutes rest, and then the max test. The max test part is quicker because we just want to get you to max quite quickly. So it's a bit like a ramp test on Zwift. So like every minute just goes up until you keel over, and then we pick you off the floor for a bit of rest. All right.
Yeah. Tell you what is interesting. I feel absolutely dreadful. It's the thought of doing this, and yet normally things like that don't affect me at all.
Wow.
It's really weird. Isn't it?
Yeah. Well, don't feel any pressure. Just
People always get a bit nervous about a lactate threshold and the VO2 max element of it as well. But I will say, you will do a harder workout on Zwift.
I don't think I'm even considering that. I know it's just the environment.
Just like the lives in it.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
It's not natural, but.
So Sam, what sort of things are we looking to? How's this going to benefit James doing a DECA, these sort of tests?
Yeah. So this will first tell us a little bit about the type of athlete he is. But I'm imagining you're very, very aerobic, given you're going to be doing a DECA. So yeah, let's hope that the data suggests that. But it's going to give us a start point to understand your energy expenditure and substrate use. And we can think about the intensity that you might be riding at, and then so if we know you're going to be riding at maybe 180 watts, might be higher than that, might be lower than that at times, we can start to estimate what your energy expenditure at those intensities will be, and that can ensure that when you're doing the race, we can then make some decisions on the fly about maybe what you need to have, or look at the whole day and go, so we've burnt this many calories, we need to make sure that we're getting that back in, or how we're going to get that back in basically afterwards as well. So this is the start point, and then this afternoon we'll kind of extrapolate it out over a longer period, because that's important to do as well, because that will change over a bit of time as well.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Because fueling is probably the most important part of the DECA, isn't it? Being able to.
Yes, it's an eating contest, isn't it?
Yeah, basically. Yeah. If you don't keep up with that.
I think everything else is secondary to it. I feel completely committed that it's pretty much an eating race.
Which is a good way to look at it. Who can eat the best?
So what's happening now, Sam?
James is starting to work pretty hard now, so we're getting towards the end probably of the first part of this test. So he's probably just sub threshold, or maybe just touching threshold now. Jen's going to grab a couple of lactate samples in a minute, and if it's over 4 millimoles, then we'll stop this part of the test. If not, you've got another 4 minutes to go. working pretty hard. But yeah, that's the plan. After that, we'll have a little break. And then do the max test part of part of the test.
The idea is that this gets quite hard, but not very, very hard.
Yeah, and it's just like, it's just, by the end you're working at threshold. It's just a bit like a threshold session. Yeah. So you're working, but you're not all out.
Got it. Test number 2. What's the second test?
Test number 2. So this is the one where you can go to the pub and tell your mates what your VO2 max is and brag about it, and they can tell you that they don't care. But yeah, so it's essentially a ramp test. So we'll start off at about 110 watts, do that for 4 minutes, get your legs going again, and then it will go up every minute until you're close to lying on the floor, basically.
256 watts.
Okay.
That's what it's been, it's what it'll always be.
It'll be higher than that. It'll be higher than that. So that's the aim. So for this part, again, we'll get you breathing through the mask, collect your expired air, and this time with the lactates, it's just right at the end. We just want to make sure that you've got a lactate that corresponds to max, basically.
Is it 20 watts a minute? So you're using a standard Zwift test?
We're going to go 30 watts a minute.
Okay.
It's just, ultimately you're just trying to ramp up as quickly as you can so you're not
just some tissue.
Yeah, doing a long time over threshold. Some of the tests use like 3-minute stages or 4-minute stages, and you carry on. We could have carried that first part onto max. You're asking the body to do a lot of work for a long time above threshold. In this case, we just want to get to it as quickly as possible.
Okay.
It's really good. Great
Go on, push, everything.
Everything you've got.
Everything out.
Come on.
Go on, James. Everything.
Come on, James.
Great work. Control the pace. Good work. Push. Everything. Every pedal stroke.
Come on, James.
Every pedal stroke. Go on. Everything you've got.
Keep going.
Push.
Really good.
Everything.
Come on, let's go, James.
Go on, squeeze it all out.
All you've got. Come on.
Go on, push.
Good. Push.
Go on, all the way.
Come on.
All the way. Well done.
Really well done, James. That's absolutely fantastic.
Well done, mate.
Good, James.
I reckon I had 10 or 15 more seconds.
That's what everybody says having finished a round.
That was such a good work. How are you feeling?
Yeah, good. Yeah.
If you want to just turn your legs over, it might be. Yeah, you done the bike riding.
No, I want to get off it.
That's it, done.
Turbo was slipping, your wheel was slipping like you were wrestling with it.
I got my foot on it, like, you're over a minute.
You cut your head?
Yeah, on that thing, I think. Yeah.
I'll like an hour and a half. I'll put my head through and do 2 laps.
They're not trying hard enough,
on
are they?
that?
Yeah, on the edge of that.
You might have to sham for them or something.
Yeah, I'm not going to be going max out, I'll be fine.
I don't know.
But, even it's an interesting comparison, like what you do day 1 versus day 5 versus day 10.
Yeah.
Not necessarily for like how you're going to fuel them, but even just like what's the drop off.
Yeah. It's even interesting between
how it changes.
how hard you think you're pushing versus what the numbers are. So you're saying you're pacing on feel. If you say I paced it the same throughout, we can then compare how you felt you were pushing and the actual numbers.
And no doubt you'll have a day where you go, it's just not happening today.
So we're going to go into
I was saying for you, like when we were in Mallorca, like historically, I've got this sort of thing in my head which is telling me, am I going the right speed for getting to the end? And so what that means, that the unexpected byproduct of that is I'm very rarely disappointed, because I can justify, well, you were going that slow because you needed to. So it doesn't make me win races, but it does keep me in them. And obviously in this, it's about staying in it.
So is this like what you think you're going to, effort-wise, at the Decker?
Yeah,
Got it.
yeah. And we'll collect some expired air sort of every 15 minutes or so. That gives us an idea of substrate use.
I've got a question to ask you. Are you confident enough in your numbers that if you were with a better trained athlete who was going to follow the plan to the letter, that you could tell them what power to ride for the whole 10 days?
No.
No.
No, definitely not. I don't think that's... there's going to be variability, as there is with your training day to day.
Yeah.
Like we talked about, you're going to have good days, you're going to have bad days, there's periods where you're going to feel low and not be able to keep that. So you've kind of got to account for that. Yeah, in an ideal world, you'd have a robot and you say, right at this power.
Yeah. But I suppose the better the athlete and the better the relationship between scientist and athlete, the closer to that you can get.
In theory, yes. In theory, I think, yeah. But I'd say, you need to work on a few events together to understand that or get to that point, I think, realistically. I think for the person, what we're trying to do here, it's just ensuring that we've got an idea of what your expenditure is, and making sure we get fairly close, or understanding how far away we are from matching that with your food intake during the event and each day as well. Because if we're way behind after day one, and that continues, you'll be on your arse by day 8 or 9. So we just want to avoid that essentially.
So James is being supported by Sam at Total Endurance Nutrition for the lead up to the Deca and during the Deca. So he's using this time now when he's on quite an easy effort just to glean as much information from Sam as he can. So Sam's asking him loads of questions about his nutrition, about his training history, about his race plan, all those sorts of things. Things we've been through over like calls and messages, but it's just that bit better face to face, isn't it? So I'm trying to stay out of the way, trying to stay pretty quiet and just let them get on with it. This time is so valuable and so helpful to James. I want him to buy into this process so that he believes in the data and trusts in it, so that hopefully it affects his race positively. So I'll leave all the links to Sam's Total Endurance Nutrition down below. Please do check him out. James, you're about 45 minutes into your steady state race pace effort. How are you feeling?
Yeah, good, yeah.
I mean, you should feel good because it's pretty easy, isn't it? But,
you speak for yourself.
So the sort of intensity you're riding at, you're at about 125 beats per minute and about 180-ish watts.
Yeah, sounds about right.
And you're not looking at that, are you? So
No.
So your field gauge is quite good. Good. That turbo changes colour based on how many watts you're pedalling, and blue and purple is easy, so that's good.
I do like purple.
You made it go red on the ramp test earlier. Sam, happy with how he's performing?
Yeah, no, it's all looking good at the moment, to be fair. I'm amazed how locked in you are into that pace. Just below 130 BPM, just straight away on the money from word go.
Well, he's been riding with me all year, so he's not had to push very hard. Brilliant. Okay, so Sam's going to talk us through what data we found this morning of that what's useful. James, you interested to hear your numbers?
Absolutely.
Let's go. You might have to pull up a chair.
So we'll keep it simple. So as we said this morning, we were interested in looking at your lactate thresholds, so LT1 and LT2, and that was the first part of the test. And also as part of that test, we were interested in getting an idea of your carbohydrate and fat burning oxidation capacity at different workloads. So this is the kind of figure that we've generated here. This is your lactate curve, if you like. So it's not the perfect curve. Your lactate started off a little bit high, but we see that sometimes, and then it drops down when you get pedaling, basically. And from that, we can determine your LT1 and LT2. LT1 is typically about when your lactate rises 1 millimole per litre above baseline or the lowest level. So that's at around this point. And funnily enough, you said you were going to sit at about 130 BPM, or your happiest at 130 BPM when you're riding. And when we've done LT1 and measured it in the lab, yes, your LT1 heart rate is 130 BPM, and we know.
Look how smug he is.
So basically, what we did this morning was pointless. So we've not learned anything there. But we've got an idea of what the power is at that at that lactate threshold as well. So about 210 watts, and probably we'll find that you'll ride a little bit below that anyway during the event. We've also got an indication of where LT2 is, and you're not particularly anaerobic, which we already know. And that's fine. We did also look at your VO2 max, of course, as well, and that told us that your VO2 max is pretty good. So you're about 68 mils per kilo, which is pretty much up there with some of the highest we've had in the lab, I would say, which is good news for you. And you can brag to your friends around that.
I don't have any friends.
Yeah, okay. Oh, well, you can tell your wife. She won't care
She
either.
has to listen, I suppose, yeah.
But she won't care. But she'll pretend she does. And then,
What are the implications of that?
Yeah, so, a high VO2 max, obviously important because, the fitter you are, then in theory, the easier this should be, of course. So what we're more interested in is the LT1 and LT2. And particularly for you, the LT1 is most important because you said, I want to ride at this heart rate or try not to go above this heart rate for a period of time. And that just tells us today that we're confident that you can sustain that intensity for a prolonged period because you're not going into that above LT1 basically by doing that. So that's important.
Do you think that I've trained that into myself because of what I've done historically? Yeah.
So you're very aerobic, and we can tell that from a number of different things from this test. But that's the key one, that your LT1 is fairly low heart rate, I would say, and you've said that you do a lot of your training below or just around that value. So you've definitely trained yourself into that state, which is perfect for what you're going to be doing. Absolutely perfect. So,
and it's basically a medical excuse for getting dropped off every single group ride I ever do.
Yeah, essentially, you're not very good at producing lactate.
So when you say LT1, what is it about that makes it a sustainable power?
Yeah, so LT1 is what we might term aerobic threshold. So, if you were doing just one Ironman, I know that's nothing to you, but one Ironman, we might say that people might ride that at or just above LT1, depending on how good an athlete they are. You'll have heard a lot of LT1, LT2 stuff recently from the Norwegian camp in triathlon, and that's the big thing, isn't it, measuring lactate. But that's LT1 is that sustainable effort, intensity, if you like, power that you should be able to maintain for a prolonged period of time. If you start to creep above that and towards LT2, then the time that you can spend at that intensity is limited, and particularly above LT2. When you go beyond threshold, we know that you can only hold that for maybe 60 minutes at the very most, realistically.
So if I wanted to be a quicker athlete, what I have to do is train to raise my LT1 threshold.
Yes, in theory, So we'd want to bring your LT1 up, but we'd also want to probably raise your LT2 and get you better at using or working at a slightly higher lactate, or being able to cope with a slightly higher lactate.
But it's difficult to understand the implications of that over races that are 10, 20, 30 days long, I guess.
And it's irrelevant, but it's less relevant than understanding and making sure that you're around LT1.
But for an Ironman, you want to work to raise that LT1.
Yeah, absolutely, So we'd try and, if you were doing some training, you'd want to work above that LT1 for longer rides, let's say, and parts of those longer rides, and even towards LT2 to try and bring it up. I
think it's a shame the Decca isn't very hilly, because that LT1, that's about 3 watts per kilo for you. That's very competitive, isn't it?
Yeah, I suppose so.
So we've got that information now, and what we've done on the bike just now, and we're going to do on the run, is get a gauge of your carbohydrate and fat oxidation and energy expenditure at a race pace, so we can use that to guide and inform some of the nutritional choices we make during the race. And I know we've got a bit of a plan in place anyway, but it would be nice to be able to make some informed decisions on the fly as well, and understand, if you're at a certain heart rate or a certain power, right, what are the implications of that in terms of energy that you're expending.
Because obviously if I get ill during the event and my heart rate is higher, almost no matter what I do about it, that will change what I need to consume, won't it, proportion wise?
It's going to change, and we can also start to look at that as well. I mean, heart rate is just one of those numbers that we can look at, but with the link with Garmin, we've also got data on power and things like that, so that we can use this collection of numbers, if you like, to inform what we're doing. It's not just one number entirely where we're driving this.
Great.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you very much.
So about 10 km per hour.
10 kph.
Little holes that'll go up at when to shoot.
How was your run, James?
Yeah, good.
So what pace did you run at?
Like 10 kilometres per hour.
Yeah.
That's about 6.8 mile an hour.
Yeah, something like that. About 9:45 minute mile in at 1% gradient.
Yeah, probably quicker than I'll do on average, I would have thought.
Yeah.
I would imagine even my moving time is probably going to be, 11, 12 minute mile in, I would have thought, because you've got lots of walking in there.
Yeah.
And probably my average marathon time is going to be, 12, 13 minute mile in, probably.
Yeah. Okay.
But we'll see.
Good. Well, Sam's just crunching your numbers, but it all looked good. You're controlling your heart rate. It seemed like that was a sustainable pace. If you're going to run slower than that on race day,
Yeah,
perfect.
no, it felt okay. Yeah. Thank you.
No worries.
Yeah.
Thank you. He's all too used to having interviews now, isn't he? Plaster on his head. What do you reckon, Sam? Was that all right?
It was good, useful day. I think learned a lot. Learned a lot in terms of what we can expect during the race. I think that's the main thing, and then how to manage you through the race as well.
It makes me feel a lot more not confident about the race, because can you be? I don't know.
Yeah.
But it makes me feel confident in that I've done what I think is the right training. The numbers say that I haven't done it all wrong. So yeah, I'm happy. Yeah.
I think, like we talked about before, your heart rate, and you sort of locked into that pace quite easily.
Yeah.
Straight away, we joked on the bike, you were on it almost within the first 30 seconds, and then pretty similar on the run there as well.
Yeah.
So I think we can be pretty happy that you're going to be able to do that on race, and therefore we can make some, fairly calculated decisions on what your energy expenditure is, whether we're going to meet the demands of that day's racing. I call it racing. Getting round.
Yeah.
And how that, whether that's going to impact what we do in the subsequent days as well. So that's useful.
Yeah, I'm excited. I can't thank you enough for doing it. It
It's
feels amazing that you guys have taken an interest in some old plodder, so I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very much, guys. Awesome day. All the information, the links down below, and more updates to come in 2 weeks on Tuesday.
See you soon.